American Top 40.
Now, this singer recently talked to Rolling Stone magazine about how success can alter your perception of things. Seal says, you live one way for 26 years, and suddenly there's a dramatic change. 5 years ago, I would get annoyed when my unemployment check arrived a day late. Next thing I know, I'm getting pissed off my limo didn't turn up. The perils of stardom. And number 11, Seal, and Prayer for the Dying.
And that means we have a brand new number one song in the USA this week on Casey's Hot 20, brought to you by Johnson's Clean and Clear. This week's number one is by a British singer who once spent months living in abandoned buildings and taking his meals out of trash cans. He was born 32 years ago in Paddington, England, to Nigerian parents. His father wanted him to be a doctor or a lawyer, but he dreamed of a more artistic life. He wanted to be a musician. And at the age of 15, he decided to leave home and go to London to try and live on his own. But he had no job and little money, and he couldn't afford to rent an apartment. But he did know some people who didn't need to pay any rent. They lived in abandoned buildings in what the English call squats. The buildings are in run-down parts of London with little running water and no heat. But for the teenager trying to fend for himself in the big city, it was at least a place to stay. For months, the future singing star lived in one of those abandoned buildings, and when he had to eat, he'd head for any number of local restaurants and pick through the food people had thrown away in the trash cans in the back. Over the next 10 years, he struggled to pull himself out of poverty, taking a series of odd jobs, and then finally fulfilling his dream of being a musician. In 1990, he got his first big break in England as the featured vocalist on a number one song there called Killer. And a year later, he hit the top 10 in the USA with his own hit called Crazy. 6 weeks ago, his latest hit entered our survey. And now it's become the biggest hit in the land. The brand new number one song in the USA on Casey's Hot 20 is Kiss from a Rose by Seal.
Casey counts 'em down.
Once a week with AT10, and you know how your favorite songs are doing on the national chart. Well, now we're up to an American Top 10 extra by Seal, a singer who studied architecture in school, and to his surprise, it made him a better musician. Seal says, quote, I love architecture. You start with nothing, and you build what you have in your mind. There's an elegance to that process. I find that elegance in music as well. For Seal, constructing a building and constructing a song are the same thing. Quote, you need a strong base, you need footings and underpinnings. Build a song out of nothing and it falls apart. But build it well and it'll last a long time. Now, with an extra, here's Seal with a hit that's been holding up since 1991. The hit called Crazy.
Coast to coast.
Well, now we're up to an American Top 20 extra by Seal, a star who was recently nominated for a Golden Globe Award for a song that he wrote about being a dad. It's the song A Father's Way from the film The Pursuit of Happiness, and writing it was a grueling experience for Seal. Quote, I had to deal with the harshness of my relationship with my father. And I had to come to understand how being a father had changed me for the better. It's been my chance to get things right. In the song, Seal sings about how it's a father's responsibility to protect his children. Quote, I build a fence around you in a father's way. He says, it's hard for me to sing it. It's hard not to be overwhelmed by emotion. Now, with an extra, here's Seal with a song about the power of love from 1995, Kiss from a Rose. Well, now we're up to an American Top 20 extra by Seal, a star with a warm sound that recently inspired a very cold performance. It was back on December the 18th that Seal put on what may be the most unusual concert of his career. The show was called The Music of Seal on Ice, And that's exactly what it was. While Seal performed hits like Kiss from a Rose, Fly Like an Eagle, and Crazy, a cast of world-class skaters interpreted his music on ice. Skaters like Olympic gold medalist Christy Yamaguchi and Brian Boitano. The concert was held at the Verizon Center in Washington, D.C., where it raised money for a charity called Autism Speaks. And then 2 weeks later, it was broadcast on NBC on New Year's Day. And what did Seal think of the production? Quote, "I've never envisioned skating set to my music. It was actually beautiful. It was a pleasant surprise. And thank goodness I didn't have to do the skating." With an extra, here's Seal chillin' with a hit from 1991, Crazy.
Wheelchair, she bright the face, tells the